The correspondents, the people that you see contacting moneysavingexpert.com. Martin, what are their chief concerns? Morning to you.
Good morning. Well, look, this is such a wide divide of what's going on in the nation. We go at one end to the people who are benefiting substantially from the pandemic, those who are in work or sometimes in furlough and who have massively reduced expenses, so are able to save substantially, right to the other end, which is those up to 3 million people who are excluded from any main form of state help, many of whom are dire with the talk of taking their own lives at the very bottom end. We don't want anyone to do that, but we do need help for those people. I've spoken on the programme before about those issues. Yeah. So this is such a wide divide, it's very difficult to narrow it down into one field. But if I were, I think I'd split it into what people are looking at. Furlough, can I be furloughed is the question. The self-employed scheme, which is available and number 3 is still on. Payment holidays and universal credit. There'd be the sort of 3 main areas that people are coming back with me on.
How accommodating, how tolerant or understanding would you say banks, credit cards, other financial institutions are being or need to be, Martin?
I actually think they're being pretty good. Now, some of that is because it's the most tightly regulated environment that we have. The FCA has told them what they have to do. That's the financial regulator, and they are following it. But some have gone above and beyond that. So let's just go through what's available right now for people. Payment holidays due to COVID-related finances are still on. Many people are asking me, are they going to bring them back? They're still on. And for most of them, they're on until the 31st of March. So mortgages, cards, loans, car finance. If you are struggling due to COVID, you are due up to 6 months payment holiday, which is given in 3 months blocks automatically. Now, I would say only do this if you need to do it, because the interest still racks up if you take a payment holiday. It just means you don't have to pay. It's a deferment. The interest still racks up, and while it won't go on your credit file, it can certainly, during the time you're on a payment holiday, stop you getting a new product. So if you're on a mortgage payment holiday and you've got a remortgage due where you're going to try and get a cheaper deal, it's unlikely you're going to be able to get one of those. Now, if you've already had 6 months worth of help, you no longer need to be given a payment holiday. The lender should look at trying to give you what's called tailored support. It can be a whole different range of support to help you get through this, but that doesn't need to be a payment holiday. And crucially, once you get into the tailored support end, if you've had 6 months, that will go on your credit file, so will likely have a longer term impact on your ability to borrow in future. So think very carefully about that. And then there is an urgent warning. Now, in the last round of extensions of payment holidays, the regulator chose not to extend overdrafts. I thought it was a rather strange decision. I'm hearing that technically it's because it was arguably an overreach of its powers in the first place to tell them that they could put a payment holiday on. But your listeners don't care about the technicals. What they care about is the practicals. So what happened, though, is they said you no longer need to give COVID-based overdraft support, but some banks are still doing it, and that ends on the 31st of January, so not long left. Wow. Lloyds, Halifax, Bank of Scotland and Santander will still offer 3-month-long up to £500 0% overdrafts for those struggling due to COVID, but that ends on the 31st of January unless you extend it. So if you're with one of those banks and you are struggling and you need help, talk to them immediately. Those are the main payment holiday help that's out there.
Talking is the key. Even if you're in a bad place, even if you're hoping it will go away, it's not going to get away. Ring your credit card company, ring your bank and start the dialogue. That seems to be one of the main principles. Is that right, Martin?
Yeah, and if you're struggling further, then speak to one of the non-profit debt counselling agencies, National Debt Line, Citizens Advice Bureau, Step Change. If you're struggling emotionally too, and as you may know, I set up a charity called the Money and Mental Health Policy Institute, which looks at changing policy to do with mental health and money, because the two are so viciously interlinked. Then Christians Against Poverty can give counselling as well. So look at that help. One of the other things I'd be urging people to do at the moment, just a couple of quick other tips people should know. Most people know what furlough is, so I'm not going to give you a long, here's how furlough works. If right now you can't work due to childcare issues, Firms are allowed to furlough you for that reason. Now, furlough is at the employer's discretion. I'm not saying they have to, but it is not wrong to ask, and it is not wrong if they do it. If they can't furlough you, you do have a legal right to time off to look after your children if you're homeschooling them. But I'm afraid you don't have a legal right to be paid for it, which is, of course, a terribly difficult choice right now. If you've been told to shield equally, you've had one of those letters that you need to shield, firms can furlough you for that. If they won't furlough you, again, it's discretionary, then you should be entitled to sick pay if you're entitled to sick pay, which does depend on how much you earn, and contractual sick pay, depending what's in your contract. The other big warning I want to give people right now is about the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme, CEASE as it's called, CEASE Grant 3, which closes for applications on the 29th of January. Now, this is where you get 80% of 3 months' average profits up to a maximum of £7,500. Let's be straight. The eligibility for this self-employment grant is the same as the other two. Those who are excluded from that are excluded from this. There's nothing I can do about that apart from shout from the rooftops, and I hope the fourth grant, I've got a tiny bit of hope the fourth grant will change. So here's what you need to do to get this grant. You need to declare a significant COVID-related profit reduction for trading between the 1st of November 2020 and the 31st of January 2021. Now, this needs to be a reasonable belief your profits will drop. Earlier on, back in November, many people said, I'm not sure. So I said, wait. And once you do know, or do think you know, then do the declaration. But now, due to this lockdown, I'm pretty sure most people will know if their profits are going to be down. So you can make that declaration. Okay. But the profits have to be down for one of two reasons. Either lower demand activity or capacity, which would be defined as fewer customers, cancelled contracts, supply chain issues, or temporarily unable to trade, which could be due to lockdown, the obvious, or, here's the ones, parental or caring responsibilities. So if your profits are down because you're caring for your kid, because they're not at school right now, that is legitimate, as it is if you're shielding.